one of the questions that was brought up is a good one here. I'm going to share the screen on this one. This is also Cowherd and our good friend John Middlecoff. And Middlecoff's done so well for himself with his volume. He's done well. And here is a little bit of Cowherd, then a little bit of Middlecoff. Listen to what they both advocate. Cowherd's going to advocate the Niners need like a franchise reset. But then Middlecoff advocates something that many Niner fans at the beginning of the year would have thought be the unthinkable. Listen to this.
Let's start with Green Bay 38, San Francisco 10. So, I mean, you knew it was trouble. Bosa out, Brock Purdy out, Trent out. But as I was watching this, it was more than that. Because, I mean, Green Bay gave them opportunities. I think you have to have a hard look in the mirror. And it's hard in the NFL when you still have really good people in the locker room. I think this franchise needs a complete reboot. If you look at the Detroits, the Green Bays, Buffalo, Kansas City, the Chargers are up and coming. San Francisco is like an old fighter, John. They're like an old boxer. Last year, you know, they were hanging on, had one last good fight. Stop drafting receivers, rebuild the O-lines and D-lines. Bosa's hurt, Kittle's hurt, McCaffrey's hurt. You know this organization well, but listen, Green Bay was going to win this game. You could tell 2 series in. I think San Francisco has to hyper aggressively reboot the franchise.
Well, it's tough when you're paying all these guys all this money. They've recently invested. I think the best thing that could happen to them, because they're not making the playoffs, keep losing these games. I said, you know, today was not a great day for Dallas. Like, they're not going to the playoffs. You win, it ruins your draft position. If you're the 49ers, you want to be drafting 7th, not 15th, right? Because we know quarterbacks usually go, and that gives you an opportunity to get one of the best players on the board. They play Buffalo next week. That's a loss. You know, the Rams, they still play the Cardinals. Like, they could lose these games, and I would imagine they do. So, I mean, I think you're looking at best a 7-win team, and I think right now, you know, not winning maybe one more game the rest of the season. This Purdy thing, it was well reported today, like they're not even sure what's going on. Bosa hurt one hip, then he hurt another. Trent's just a weathered, you know, older player. This team, you know what they need? They kind of need to get bounced in the first round. Or, I mean, you know, not even make it to the first round of the playoffs and get extra time off and get to reset. It happened to the Warriors. Remember, they had 2020 was really rough couple years. Then they were fresh, then they won a championship.
Well, remember, the Niners' last Super Bowl loss went
Terrible.
6-10, were injury ravaged.
So, to me, the best, easiest way for them to get players, they're not going to have a lot of cap space because of all the big cap, you know, hits they have with players, is to have like the 8th pick in the draft. Because it's not just the first round, it's every round. And they've proven to be able to draft really well in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. When you're drafting in the top 10, you know, there aren't really many excuses to miss like when they're drafting in the late 20s. So I think the best case scenario, roll out the team they're rolling out, and their schedule's hard. I mean, they still play the Dolphins, who look good right now. Obviously, they got the Bills next week. They're just going to naturally lose a lot of games, which I think is really going to benefit them long term.
What do you think, John? I mean, Middlecoff is basically saying tank the rest of the year. As he said, they may not need to really tank because they're already losing all these games. Colin says they need a dramatic franchise reset. You know, I mean, should the Niners do what John is saying, play the kids, shelve the injured vets, lose out, go for maybe a top 10 pick? They currently sit 14 in round 1. If they lost out, they probably could get to like 7 or 8. But then I guess the question is, who do you target? I mean, who do you want? I would say what's really important, you got to get a great player. It doesn't have to be a quarterback. I mean, Cam Ward's going to go in the top 10. But you got Quinn Ewers. I mean, it doesn't have to be a quarterback though. It could be an offensive tackle, Will Campbell, LSU, Emory Jones. It could be a running back, Ashton Gianti. It could be a receiver, Tedoroa McMillan. It could be a free safety like Malachi Starks. It could be a big defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan. Linebacker, Jalen Walker from Florida State's amazing. There's some edge players. What do you think? I mean, do they need a hyper reboot, as Colin says? Should they lose out, as Middlecoff says? Is it worthy of is the difference between 8 and 14 or 8 and 15 enough to make you change the way you finish out this year?
Might be. If you're going to go out and take Javon Kinlaw, then it's not. I mean, that's where they took him. They were at 13, traded back with Tampa, who took Tristan Wirfs, and they took Kinlaw at 14. You've got to hit these picks, whether they're in the first round, second round, third round. 49ers done great in the mid rounds and not so much in the first round outside of Nick Bosa under this current regime. But before we get to draft talk, just to what those guys both said, I have no issue with them saying they're going to tank. They're going to do it because Fred Warner has a broken ankle and might as well sit out, and Bosa's hurt and he might as well sit out. Look, it's over for the year. So they're right in the respect, because we've seen it again and again. You're putting a lot of mileage on the tires when you go and play in these playoff games, and you can't just throw your shoes on the field and think. And then everything that's happened off the field, from the holdouts to the tragedies that have happened with Ward and now Trent Williams and his family, all these things, Ricky Pearsall getting shot, these are all emotional things, and it's taken their toll. I'm not making an excuse. It's an explanation. So that's what's happened. Now, as far as the future is concerned, it's really easy to beat on a team when they're down. I remember 2020, this same kind of talk, and Jimmy's got to go, and this guy's got to go, and that guy's too old, and this guy's no good, and this guy's always hurt. I get it. They're older than that team, and they're more expensive than that team. Colin's got a point there. But if you look at this team from a talent standpoint, all right, next year, who's going to return? Debo's not going to return. But you get over ACLs. Pearsall should be better in the second year. That's when you take your jump. He got shot. There's all these things. He didn't even have camp. I'm not making excuses. He's going to be a player. George Kittle's going to return. You and I have talked about this. Fred Warner's going to get healthy again. The secondary's got a lot of nice young pieces, even without Ward, and they got Lenore for long term. They got enough offensively. Kyle Shanahan's a hell of a good coach who's not having a great year. They're going to replace their defensive coordinator and special teams guy. So, look, that's a lot of moving pieces, and it's a lot of guys to change. I understand that. But if you look at core talent of the 49ers when they are healthy, they're still good. They need to concentrate in the offseason on the offensive and defensive lines. Trent's not going to play forever, and I hate to say this because he's got massive arms and will wrap them around me like an anaconda and kill me the next time I see him, but he's not playing as well. And Banks was a second-round pick who hasn't worked out. And Richard Sherman's right. Brendel stinks at center. And Pooney, they got lucky, and they got it in. Honestly, I don't know what McKivitz does half the time at right tackle. So they've got one really good young offensive lineman, and they have one really good defensive lineman. That ain't getting it done. So if you concentrate what money you have and your draft capital that Middlecoff speaks of in the trenches, and then Warner comes back and Greenlaw comes back, and you got a good young secondary, Kyle's going to handle the offense. They'll score enough. You got to look at your division first. Seattle's up and coming, there's no question, but Geno Smith is 34. They've still got a ways to go. The Rams still have a ways to go. I never trust the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. So if we start next year with a healthy team, if the 49ers do, it's not we, I don't play for them, they're still the favorites in the NFC West. And then at that point, you never know. Look, I think the Lions have a nice young core that's going to be a pain in the ass forever. The Eagles, remember the Eagles last year? What the hell is going on with them? And they've got major problems. The Eagles are I think going to the Super Bowl, their defense is amazing. Yeah. And now that Hutchinson's gone for the Lions, they're not getting to the passers. Zadarius Smith's not the answer. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC. A year ago, we thought they were done, and Kelsey retires. Oh, my God. They bring in Vic Fangio. They fix the defense, and all of a sudden, Saquon Barkley becomes what CMC was last year, and they're the Super Bowl favorites. So, look, put the dirt on the 49ers this year all you want. Enjoy it, laugh, have a good time. Next year, with this group and with Kyle and with John and the type of talent they still have, they have another run in them. They're not done yet.